Welcome to Wildlife Outdoors with your host, Russell and Jose. If you have a passion for conservation of the outdoors, or you're enjoying a calming hike in the mountains, an exhilarating kayak trip on the river, feeling a fish on the end of your line, cooking on an open flame in a primitive campsite, or stalking big game, just waiting for the perfect shot, you're in the right place. So put on your boots and polarized sunglasses and come along for the ride.
On today's episode of Wildlife Outdoors, we're joined by a man who's redefined what it means to hunt and eat with intention. Jesse Griffiths is a chef, hunter, butcher, author, and advocate for knowing exactly where your food comes from. He's the owner of the acclaimed Austin restaurant Dai Due, a three-time James Beard Award nominee, and the author of the Hog Book and the Turkey Book, guides that are just as much about ethical sourcing and conservation as they are about bold flavor. From guiding hunts to teaching people how to process and prepare wild game, Jesse's built a career around reconnecting us with the land, the animal, and the table. Today, we dive into turkey hunting, field butchery, and what it means to approach the outdoors and your food with respect and responsibility. Let's welcome Jesse Griffiths. How you doing, man?
I'm great. Thank you. That was a very kind intro. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So, I mean, you obviously do a lot of talking about hog and stuff. So we're gonna kind of take a turn here and talk a little bit more about your turkey book. So, what was the inspiration for you to write the turkey book?
Yeah. I'm just inherently a bit lazy, and I think that I always say this too: just dress for the job you want. And I, in recent years, have fairly settled on turkey hunting as being my favorite thing. I love the springtime. I mean, I'm sure we can elaborate on the whys here in a moment, but because it is my favorite thing, and I'm a little bit lazy. I have to figure out how to make my favorite thing my job, even if it's just temporarily. And so I thought, why not write a book about it, and kind of journal a season of turkey hunting, and here we are.
That is awesome. And so I don't have the book, unfortunately. I will be ordering it soon, I'm pretty sure. But from what I've read about the book, it kind of encompasses cross country turkey hunts, doesn't it?
A bit, yeah, and I will happily send you a book. So we'll get that rectified post haste.
Thank you.
Yeah, it it journals one season, and so it was the 2023 season.
Okay.
And we went to 4 different states, and we tried to just kind of piece together a group of either people that were very dedicated turkey hunters, that were chefs that liked to turkey hunt, or conservationists in kind of the turkey realm, and did these hunts through that lens, and kind of more so than the Hog Book, where it's kind of a textbook and very technical. This was more about the experience and incorporating the mindsets and ideas and recipes and approaches of other people too. And so kind
Okay.
of this national team across 4 states, where we go in and just and hunt turkeys in these 4 very, very different regions and very different circumstances, and had a lot of fun.
That's
Man,
awesome.
that's
So
awesome.
can we dive a little bit more into the conservation and the differences between the books? Because, all of us know that hogs are invasive and a lot of people, really don't like them, but turkeys are kind of, everybody loves them. And so I can imagine trying to approach writing a book based on those two, why one would be more technical and one would be more, I guess, loving. So can we
Yeah,
dive into a little bit of conservation of turkeys and what you know about it?
certainly. And I think I love the way that you put that, like more loving. And it's true to follow up a book about just the utilization of an invasive and destructive species, the hog, and then go into something that on the spectrum of huntable species is almost at the opposite end. I mean,
Hmm.
not exactly endangered, but in places on the decline, and some places not on the decline, just robust populations, but um, a protected and, as you said, like loved bird. And how do we interconnect the concept of hunting something that we love so much with the conservation of it? And so we delve into that mostly in the second chapter. So the book is kind of set up and where there's almost like different themes in each of the 4 chapters. The first one, the first chapter had a little bit to do with their life cycle, and also land management. You know, how my friend who's a rancher here in Texas was able to um, increase his turkey population through just some pretty simple management practices, and how in the short term that affected it. And we have a very robust turkey population down there now. And coming from not a very good population in a place that should have a lot of turkeys. It's got all the groceries that you
Is it-
need for a good turkey environment, but it was evidently missing a couple of those key things. And one of them was going in and controlling raccoons. And the other one was just opening up these riparian areas, just creating more comfortable places for them to live comfortably. And so that's an example of some management and some conservation. And then we really are very judicious about how many turkeys we take off of that property. Some years, we are judicious ourselves. And this last year, the turkeys forced us to be extra judicious about how many turkeys we were allowed to take off of there. And we didn't come near our goal, which is, I mean, I guess just more turkeys for next year, hopefully,
Right.
more bigger turkeys. But really, I think that it was the second chapter, which is when we went to Georgia, where we really kind of delved into the history of conservation a little bit. You know, don't it wasn't a deep dive in particular. You know, we're kind of coinciding with the 50-year anniversary of the National Wild Turkey Federation, and kind of highlighting what they've done. I've done some work with them in the context of the book, and also in other promotional ways. And so I think that their overall take of, you know, to put it very simply, of just like creating habitat and creating a world for more turkeys to live in is a really, really great thing. And you can't even, there's no parallel between that and hogs at all. It's like, we're not out there like, you know, nursing orphaned piglets. So that they can one day achieve their dream of ransacking a farmer's cornfield. So there was the second chapter in Georgia, and we were with this man named Chris Jenkins. It was a fascinating guy. Not only is he an excellent turkey hunter, like very good, like a very, very dangerous man in the turkey woods, but he's a very forward thinking conservationist. And his approach, again, you know, I have to put these things simply because I'm just not nearly as smart as these other people. So he's using burns, you know, like this very traditional approach of managing this mostly pine forest, pine savanna property, and also with one swampland, and managing it via burns. And it was really fascinating. There's one photo in the book where you can see it. It's divided right down the spine. One side is burned and one side is previously burned and is very, very green, you know, and you see the effect of it. And we're walking down the road right in the middle of it. And
That's
it was
awesome.
a very cool effect to see his approach to conservation. It's not just turkeys. I mean, you can't manage a place for just turkeys. He managed from below the ground all the way up. There's a tortoise that lives in that area called the gopher tortoise. And so he's trying to promote their populations as well. And also the indigo snake, and also the eastern diamondback rattlesnake, you know, and okay, you know, we don't want like a ton of those, right? But they need to exist. And he's a snake guy too. He's a herpetologist. And so he understands that it's everything. It's all of these key species, all the flora, all the fauna, from the bottom all the way up, that creates turkey habitat. and he especially loves the turkeys. And it was just really fascinating to see somebody so passionate and wise, and interesting, um, in that context, and just making sure that this land was healthy, and the end product being more turkeys. But the side benefits of that was a lot more of everything. Just like a healthy beetle population, a healthy everything. The pines were great. It was really cool to see that, and just kind of this tiny little window that you get into that world of how these people are so dedicated and have spent their entire lives trying to make these habitats better and learning all of this, and they're this vast amount of knowledge, and it's terribly humbling. Yeah, very cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've heard people say before that turkey populations can be a signal for the health of the ecosystem. That if turkeys are doing well, that most likely a lot of other species are doing well. Whether it be, like you said, down to the snakes or the tortoises to white-tailed deer and stuff like that. That the turkeys can be a good signifying species to tell how well you are managing a piece of property.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
and his property was, I'm gonna say loaded with turkeys, and these are Easterns, and so they're notoriously tricky. They seem to be the smart ones, like the smartest ones, and not, they don't behave like a private land Rio, where
Right.
sometimes we can just, accidentally make a sound and they might, just run at you.
Yeah.
Very tricky builds, but it's just amazing to see it, in that context. And you're right. You really felt like when you were out in those woods that everything was thriving.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're absolutely right about the Easterns. They are definitely tricky. This past season, unfortunately, I didn't harvest one, but I tried, and I tried. Uh, I think I went out in the woods probably 3 or 4 days, 10-hour days, towards the end of season, just trying to get it done. And I was hunting in the Washita Mountains here in Central Arkansas, and
Boom.
it was some rough hunting. And I've heard of people in South Texas on private land hunting Rios, archery and stuff like that. And I was talking to a bunch of people up in Arkansas about, hey, I think I want to go archery hunting, this and that, da 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 da. And every one of them was like, I mean, good luck. I've been hunting turkeys for 30, 40 years, never seen one harvested with a bow up here. And I was like, I wonder if it's just, the bird themselves, or a mixture between the bird and the location. And yeah, it was some definitely tough hunting. Didn't even see one. And I definitely got tricked by the Easterns this year.
Yeah, I mean, this season was hard for me. But, I mean, I would do it all over, knowing the same outcome, but it was tricky. And the Easterns were the ones that were really. It was also at the end that we hunted Easterns. We had a 5-day hunt up in Wisconsin for Easterns,
Nice.
and we did not get one in
Really?
5 days. Two of us, and then a couple people rolled out for an hour on our final day there. We're just like, it was kind of bad weather, raining, cold, blowing wind, and then it let up for an hour, and they just, where this story's going. And they just, zipped out for an hour and come back with two monster toms.
Very
We
God,
state.
were soaking wet and frozen, and yeah. But I understand that Arkansas is a tough place in general, like fairly low populations. And
Yeah.
I think you're hunting a hard bird in a hard place with not a lot of high bird numbers. And so, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, it was definitely tough hunting, and some of my buddies went up to Missouri because they were having a hard time in Arkansas. And I know, I think 8 people that harvested turkeys near the border of Arkansas and Missouri this year. It's like, I might have to try that next year.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of getting into the why. I'm curious as to the why, the love and the passion for pursuing turkeys is, and it sounds like, as difficult as it is, the way you talk about it, it's kind of like almost a love and appreciation for the challenge. Is that one of the things that drew you into pursuing turkeys, and your love and passion for them?
Yeah. I mean, there's some frustration. I'll be honest
Yeah.
with you, this season really, just kicked me in the stomach. I was like, oh man, this was just over and over, it was just we hit it on hard days, but, and I was thinking, at the end of the season, there's other factors. You deal with social media. Like, I'm sitting there at the airport in Wisconsin, my season's over. Oh, and I will just say this. As we were pulling into the airport in Wisconsin to drop off the rental car, we look over to our left and then in the field. And also, where this story is going too. The field next to the rental car drop off has 6 strutting gobblers. I mean, if anything that I appreciate about turkeys, it is their incredible sense of irony. Just like masterful manipulation. Like what? Like just the ability to absolutely toy with human emotions. They got me good with that one. I will say, done, turkeys. Well done. Let me hop on this expensive flight and go home, as the Spartans say, on my shield, not carrying it. And so, what is it? And I was thinking too. It's like, okay, well, I you do, like I was saying, deal with social media. You see all these birds popping up, you sit in the airport and it's just like turkey, 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 turkey. Look at my turkey. And you're just like, oh man, it's hard. And then you realize it's like, there's also this, I could say that I killed turkeys in 2 states this year, or I could say I hunted turkeys in 4 states. And what's the really important thing? The really important thing is that I hunted turkeys in 4 states. Did I make mistakes? I'm sure. Absolutely. Did I do some things right? Yeah, I did. I also did that. And I put in the time and the day I was coming home, I'm already planning the 26th season. I'm like, yeah, I want to go and try this spot. I want to go back there. What is the draw? I don't know. That's a great question. There's many, many very beautifully written books about the allure of turkey hunting, what it is. For me, I love the hunt. The success is super sweet when it happens. There's something, there's just a real build of work around it. And then when it comes to fruition, it's incredibly special. I love springtime. I think that time of year, the opportunity to be out in the spring, it can be volatile, it can be very cold, it can be very hot. I experienced all those factors this year. From probably 101 degrees on opening day in Texas. The very first day of turkey hunting was 101 in South Texas. And then all the way, down into the high 20s. So, kind of just all over the place. But I got to hunt in the mountains.
Mhm.
I got to hunt in Nebraska. I got to hunt with my daughter in Nebraska.
That's
I got
awesome.
to hunt in Wisconsin. I went to 3 states that I've never been to before. I saw Mount Rushmore. I saw the Crazy Horse statue. We ate in a saloon. Like it was cool.
Yeah.
I think too is like what I've started to look at it as is it's almost like traveling through the lens of turkey. And the cool thing about turkeys is they're in 49 states. They're in 49 cool places,
Mhm.
So you can go to this place and do this thing, but at the same time, you get to absorb the place. I got to go and see Nebraska and see, why early settlers went insane because of just the ongoing flatness of it.
Yeah.
Like they could look out for miles and just, if you lived that, with the hardships of that time. I got to see that. And then I also got to see where that same hill just dips down into a very lush and verdant valley where there's this beautiful river and pine trees and cottonwoods and turkeys. I got to experience that. I got to see all these just cool things. I got to see the beauty of Wisconsin. I got to get my butt kicked once again in New Mexico. But learn more. That's like this. New Mexico is the slowest lesson for me. I think I'm at 10 days there, no bird.
Oh, wow.
And just, just a grind and like, and learning slow lessons, like getting close. We're 30, 40 yards. We're really getting closer every year. But then at the end of that, you're like, well, next year, maybe we're going to seal this deal. But the thing is like, I got to go and be there. And it was, 68 degrees and you're standing on a mountain. The sky is as blue as you can imagine. And it's not killing a turkey. It's turkey hunting, and I think that's what I really love. But unfortunately for me, the third component of that is I love eating turkeys, and all this flowery talk about the art and mysticism of turkey hunting doesn't really exactly work. But I will say, having a kid with tags works like a charm. So still, if I need to have fried turkey, I've got it, and I think we got a pretty good stash going. So, I did kill birds. I killed 4 birds. But and she killed 3. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, I mean, we don't want to look at those. I'll tell you the stats. I hunted 28 days, 4 birds. She hunted 5 days, 3 birds. Again, I'm like, what's happening here? What's happening? This is a 14-year-old. Like, what?
That's crazy.
Am I over curating these experiences? Evidently. But it was a good season overall, and I learned a lot, and I can't wait for next season. So that's kind of the why.
That's awesome. Man.
And yeah, sometimes it's more about the journey than the destination or the outcome.
Yeah, who you're with, where you're going, those experiences in the field. I mean, man, I think those memories will probably stay on long after, the memories of the actual, like, I guess, killing or the harvest of the thing, goes away. But, no, that was awesome, man. Very, very well said. I dig it.
Now I'd like to tell you about a couple of our sponsors. First, we have Bucked Up. When you're out in the wild, whether you're stalking a trophy buck, casting for that elusive bass, or trekking through rugged terrain, you need more than just grit. You need fuel that matches your passion for the outdoors. That's where Bucked Up energy drinks and supplements come in. Crafted for those who live life on the edge, Bucked Up offers a range of products designed to enhance your performance, endurance, and recovery. From the early morning hunts to the late night fishing trips, Bucked Up has your back. Use promo code WLO20 at checkout to receive 20% off your order. Explore their full range of products by clicking on the link in the description. Next, we have Foretold Coffee Company. Start your adventure with a brew as bold as the journey ahead. Foretold Coffee Company crafts ethically sourced small batch roast for those who find peace in the wild. Founded by Army veteran Joshua Sandoval, each cup reflects resilience, exploration, and the spirit of the outdoors. Whether it's the light Peruvian cocoa, the medium El Salvadoran bourbon, or the dark Mexican honey, each cup is perfect for the base camp mornings or fireside evenings. Subscribe to their monthly coffee club for 10% off and stay fueled for every expedition. To learn more, visit foretoldcoffeeco.com.
So you're a chef and you own and operate Dai Due, which is a phenomenal restaurant. I was actually there about 2-3 weeks ago with some friends of mine, and highly recommend it to anybody who's listening and lives in the Austin area. Awesome. And so I'm just kind of curious, we might be going a little bit far back, but I think I read somewhere that you came into hunting a little later in life than perhaps, a lot of hunters, especially here in Texas. At what point did you decide to integrate your passion for hunting and your passion for cooking, and then to also create these books and share that with people? And because one thing I noticed also, like while I was at Dai Due, I saw the turkey book, and I was actually gifted the Hog Book by a friend of mine who won it at a Stewards of the Wild event, and he gifted that book to me, and then I noticed that the photos are beautiful. Like, not only is it like a cookbook, but it's like something you would have on a coffee table, like a piece of art for guests to kind of look through and enjoy. Like, how did you decide or come up with the idea to like just kind of integrate all these things together?
Yeah. I'll address the last part first, and we'll work in reverse from there.
Yeah.
And the book and the books and the styles of the books come from how I enjoy reading books. I have, since I was a kid, I love reading stories about hunting and fishing.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe not a terribly long story either, like a
Mhm.
concise short story. One of my favorite authors he's a fly fishing writer. He passed away less than a year ago. John Gierach.
Oh
And
yes. Yeah.
just like a famous and amazing, probably the most influential writer that I've ever read. And he would sometimes write in the first person, in the present tense. I'm sorry, first person, present tense. Like we go to the lake. We just like that,
Mhm.
and like that immediacy. I always felt to be really compelling. And I was just like, I would just read those stories when I was a kid. I'd read those stories over and over, whether they were hunting or fishing. So in the creation of the books, I had a very solid idea of what I wanted to get out, or what I want people to get out of them. I wanted to be kind of exciting. I wanted to be very useful. And a key part of that is the visuals. I want you to be able to like look at something and just be like, oh my God, that's a beautiful photograph. And so I've worked with Jody Horton, who is the photographer for all three of my books. I worked with him for, I don't know, 15, 16 years, a very, very long time. And we've had a very ongoing, long relationship. And he is just a masterful photographer. He's very highly sought after in the food world. I was checking out the other day how many, as a photographer, he doesn't necessarily get a James Beard nomination, but how many books he's been a part of that have received nominations or wins. And it's something like 5 or 6. Um,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
it's a lot.
That's
And he's
insane.
kind of the background, but he's not only just an excellent photographer, he's a great dude. And we work together very well, whether it's a technical photo or a landscape. It's like he's able to capture those things very concisely. And it's great. It works really well because what you can have is a book that has a beautiful shot of, a turkey and some trees. But you can also get that perfect overhead where you can tell exactly what I'm doing with a knife, you know? And so you can, and still he can make the technical beautiful, and he can make the beautiful kind of technical too. And so I think that's just a really key component to a book. A book is entertainment to me, and it should be. It should be fun to pick up and should make you excited, should make you want to do that thing. It should, you should be like, oh, I want to, that's what I am. I have a terrible cookbook problem, but it's real bad. I don't know how many it's a bunch. I want too many. I saw a cookbook the other day, and I was like, I don't even remember when I got that. I don't know if I've even, I should probably look at that cookbook. This is too many, or
Mhm.
I don't know, whatever. But cookbooks are fun. I appreciate them personally, and I think that it should be exciting. And so for that reason, we work, me and Jody. We also work with a team of like highly talented people. Without getting too far in the weeds with this, it's like we're self-published, so that enables us
Oh
to do
wow.
whatever we want. We can show whatever we want, particularly in the Hog Book. We don't have to worry about censorship, editing. We can show all the guns, all the guts, blood, dead pigs, dead baby pigs, whatever we want. We can do it.
Mhm.
And that is one of the great benefits of being self-published. One of them. There's a lot of them. Just having that creative control. But with that comes also our ability to put together a team. So our designer, Blair Richardson, she lives down in Mexico City. She's been key in making these visually um, like attractive,
Mhm.
and also telling these technical stories. So, there's a lot to that.
Mhm.
I think that these books, I first and foremost, I want them to be educational, but I also want them to be very beautiful. And so they really help with that. And that education is something that I've been involved with for a long time. To kind of go into the next question, first question, was like how this is all integrated. And I early on in the days of the business, and the business was founded in 2006. So we're coming up on 19 years in
Wow.
August. for the business. And then the brick and mortar restaurant, we're coming up on 11 years. So a pretty good run of it. But early on, I really appreciated the educational aspect of it, whether that was illuminating the importance of eating locally sourced food, supporting your neighbors financially, having that connection, how that connection goes beyond just the freshness of the tomato. I mean, it has a lot of layers, a lot of very beneficial layers, a lot of layers that are rooted in, our in every society, every successful society in the world. It's just this connectivity with your neighbors and things like
Mhm.
that. But this educational aspect was, I found to be very attractive. I didn't realize that. And everyone was like, oh, I want to be kind of a teacher or write instructional books. But it just all of a sudden kind of happened. And around the same time, or a little bit around the same time is when I started hunting. I had spent my entire childhood fishing. Like, I was just crazy for it. And also, as a little kid, I just played in the woods all day, hiding, and like running around the woods, playing army. And it wasn't a stretch to be like, oh, I always wanted to hunt. I just didn't know it, and like, my family didn't hunt. I was the only child. I still am.
Mhm.
And it, it, it kind of came, later, obviously, but it was also a byproduct of learning to butcher in restaurants. So I had worked in restaurants. I've done, worked a lot of different stations within the restaurant on the hotline, also in the prep area, I made pasta at the restaurant. I baked bread, I made desserts. Was a butcher. And so having that back end knowledge or training was super beneficial. Cause then, when I finally was able to get that front part of it done, I knew what to do. It's like, and obviously there's a lot to learn about how to actually shoot a deer,
Mhm.
and then how well it's still warm, get the guts out and skin off, and then things got more familiar. Um, but kind of putting all of that together, I would say I I found kind of surprisingly to be, "Oh, this is what I want to do. This is what I really love," and I like communicating with people. I like learning with people too. I think it's very good to go into a situation like that and be like, listen, I don't know everything. In fact, I know very little. This is what I do know. What do you know?
Mhm.
And then you can, like, you get a lot farther that way. I was just telling somebody today that the entire Hog Book is a compilation of answers. Over many, many years, people would ask a question about hogs and would kind of mentally log that question. And then over time, I start to see this continuity in
Mhm.
questions, or the same question, or the same general attitude, or the same general, like maybe a little bit of misinformation over here in mythology. Like, oh, I heard that many, many times that you can't do that. I should research that and come up with a solid answer as to why actually that's not quite true. And then, the book kind of like wrote itself in that it was just a compilation of answers to a thousand questions that had been asked over the course of kind of learning and discovering and going through this journey of like trying to figure out hogs. And so that was incredibly fun for me. And next up was like, well, I'll do turkeys now, 'cause I'm really like, as you get older, you kind of settle into things, like, oh,
Mhm.
this is my, I really don't like apple pie, but I love peach pie. And that's not a quote. I love all pie. Uh, but like, you get settled into things,
Yeah.
and you find that thing that's your favorite,
Mm.
like, I really just, like this thing, and I've settled on turkeys, and I don't know enough about turkeys and turkey hunting by far. If you ever went turkey hunting with me, you would be like, he doesn't. Uh, that I am in a position to say, oh, definitively, this is how you call it a gobbler. It's like, I'm not that guy. I luck into them every once in a while. I find a particularly dumb one, or the stars align. Um, And but I do have a curiosity about it, and then for that book, I wanted to integrate more people, and also I do feel very comfortable at cooking them. I ate them a lot, and so there's hits and misses and stuff, and so kind of categorizing those hits is another way to just stay on that educational path. I think that I've very far deviated from your question by this point, so I
Oh
apologize.
man, this is awesome.
No,
Yeah.
it's
Okay,
great. So to kind of feed off of what you were just talking about in terms of education and stuff like that. So I know a lot of people, when they think of turkey meat, it's typically just deli meat or ground turkey. But when you're harvesting a wild animal, specifically one that, we try to use everything because we love the animal so much. How does that play into how you create your recipes, and how do you try different things in how to prepare certain parts of the turkey?
yeah. Well, I think it's you have to always be willing to learn continually. Don't get kind of entrenched in a certain belief, even if it's your own, like
Mhm.
kind of, just be willing to kind of get out there. And, I was doing one of the first promotional talks I did about the turkey book was at the Eddie store here in Austin. Somebody asked me a question, and they said, what's the biggest mistake people make when they're processing game? And I don't know how my brain did this, but I came up with what I felt like was a good answer to that. And instead of something technical like, oh, your knives aren't sharp enough, that's not it. And it was like, you know what it is? It's that you're not enjoying it. And really, that's the biggest mistake you can make in the processing of any game animal or fish for that matter. Hell, just call it cooking. Well, let's let's just keep it to the game. Okay. It's not enjoyable. Like if you look at the entire process, um, there's like a linear thing. It's like there's like this continuity. We'll start with the first thing is anticipation. Let's say it's me sitting in the airport in Rapid City, kind of dejected, but thinking about 26 turkey hunting. Well, I'm going to go back to Oregon. That's going to be pretty fun, actually. So it starts there. And then the end of it is the consumption of that last package, of meat, you know?
Mhm.
And in between that was a whole bunch of stuff. You got to pack, you got to travel, you got to get there, you got to roost some birds, you got to get up the morning, you got to go find those birds. And then you got to get real close to them, and then you got to fly down and run the other way. That's what happens. As far as I know, that's turkey hunting. That's in my memory. That's what turkey hunting is all about. Anyway, and then eventually one makes a mistake and you kill it, and then you get that bird on your tailgate and you're breaking it down. And why rush at that point? Like you sat in an airport or you drove for 7 hours, you drove for 12 hours. I mean, who knows? At what point and why should that become work? Or like, oh, the fun's over. It's just chores now. I gotta like clean this bird. I hate cleaning. Instead, it's like I get to clean a turkey now. I'm gonna take my time. I'm gonna take an hour to clean this thing because we tend to rush through stuff like that. Like, oh, I gotta do this stuff. I mean, it's like just do it right. Take your time, hang out with your friends, drink a beer, just do it right and enjoy this process. Enjoy that, like when you get the liver out and just get that gallbladder off just perfect. And, like really trimming up that breast and get those wings off and all that. And then figure out how to get that thing cold and figure out how to transport it back and start thinking about the first thing you're going to cook with it. And then you get it packaged, it goes in the freezer, and then you make that first thing and then you make that last thing. And that's when that line ends. And I think that it's really fun to think about it in that way. And it makes you just appreciate every little bit of it even more. So,
Mhm.
a turkey is very giving. I ran some numbers on turkeys and they yield extremely high, like 55% of the weight on average, the
Oh,
live
wow.
weight of a turkey is bone in cuts. If you take all the stuff, if you take the neck, the wings, the legs, the whole, obviously the breasts, maybe a little bit of the frame for some stock or something like that. They're very high yielding. And so if you shoot, a relatively large turkey, 20 pounds, That's 11 pounds of bone-in turkey.
Wow.
It's not nothing at
Yeah.
all. That's a good amount.
Yeah.
Many meals right there. And that's where it gets super fun. It's like, what are you going to make? And I like to make new things. I just like to, there's some hits in fried turkey, of course. It's just like always with the fried turkey. It's by far, objectively, the highest and best use. Like we just took the pack. And then beyond that, you can start to play. It's like this year I did a lot of separating the thighs from the drumsticks and utilizing those in totally different ways than just grouping them together into a leg quarter, and had great success with that. Just having this thigh meat, which is similar to the drumstick meat, but minus all those huge tendons that go down there, and it's a slightly different texture, and really like cooking that to a really nice point where it has achieved tenderness and also retained some of its texture. I was like, I found myself like really appreciating the thigh meat specifically. The offal, something I've always loved. The neck, if you haven't, ruined it with a bunch of TSS, can be really nice. If nothing else, then it can add some body to stock, and it's the easiest thing in the world to harvest off of the turkey. Once you figure out how to do it, it takes a minute. And again, it's time. It's another minute. It's out into the tree for 9 hours. What's another 60 to 90 seconds to pull the neck out of the brain? It's nothing at all. And so, just ongoing learning. Once again, I think I've just totally veered away from your question, but I hope it's okay.
Oh, I'm soaking it all up because you're getting a lot of good information. So, how do you prepare a turkey neck? I've never heard of anybody doing that.
Well, it would, in composition, it's going to be very similar to the drumstick. So it's going to take about just as long to get it to shred, and that's it. It's just a slow cook. I found myself, another thing I'm doing this year is doing this like combo braise, like a slow cook, like stew type things where you're slowly cooking things in liquid. Essentially, that's basically what a braise is. And taking a wing, a drumstick, and a neck, and then putting those in a pot and cooking all those. And you get like 3 slightly different textures, 3 slightly different flavors, maybe very, very minimal difference in that. But it was also a really interesting way to utilize the bird, where you're just kind of combining these parts. And at the end, it's the meat's kind of shredding off, and you've just got these kind of, everything's a little bit unique in the pot. And it's just an ongoing experimentation, and just like still get excited about cooking a turkey because like, oh, hey, I'm going to try this out. It's like, can I do this? But the neck in general, it's not a ton, I'm not going to lie. It's not a ton of meat, but once you shred all the meat off of a large turkey, I would say you would have more than a cup by volume of shredded meat. And that's not nothing.
Yeah.
And it's very flavorful, very similar in texture and flavor to the drumstick. And then, but it also, the amount of bones in there, with all that inherent collagen, is going to also boost the stock or the liquid. And so that's really where that starts giving up its value, is that you're kind of impregnating that broth or the braising sauce or whatever you're cooking. You're giving that more like not texture, but more like viscosity, and then that's from the neck. You just use it, it's just cool.
That's awesome. And pardon my ignorance, guy. I've never cooked, harvested, or cooked a wild turkey. What is a good temperature to cook a turkey? Can you cook it, rare, medium rare, and still eat it that way, or do you have to cook it all the way through?
Well, that's a great question. I would treat turkey closer to the chicken category than the duck category. So, duck being medium rare and chicken being cooked through. That said, the breasts, if you're not frying them or pounding them thin, where they're just going to be taken to all the way cooked and still be fine and tender and nice. If you're going to cook a turkey breast, whole or in a large piece, I found the magic temperature really to be about 150, which
Okay.
is, I think, in kind of the medium well
Mhm.
range, a very well rested 150. And I will say that I don't know if you're familiar with cooking things sous vide, where you would bag them and then cook them at a very precise temperature in an immersion speculator or a water bath. It's not something I'm super hip on. I never, when the craze was happening in the cooking world, at least, it was a big deal for a while. So you're
Mhm.
like, I'd say the 2000s was like peak sous vide, where they were just like everything was getting bowled and poached and stuff. And I just bought it. I was like, I'm not buying it. And a steak, for me, like a ribeye, it's got salt on it and you cook it over charcoal. Like,
Yeah.
I don't really know how you can make it better. I'm sure, good maybe, but do you need to? So that's fine as it is. All that said, a turkey breast cooked sous vide it's my favorite way to cook it. Because that precision really allows you to just nail it. And I cook them at 145 degrees for 3 hours.
Mhm.
And they come out. It's just beautiful. It's perfect. The texture, the tenderness, and the consistency, the tapered end, the thinner ends are not dried out. Everything's cooked exactly the same. You can throw in a pan and hit it with, I like to brown a little bit of butter and then throw that breast in there and just get a little sear, typically just on one side, just to
Okay.
add a little bit of that Maillard, a little bit of that sweetness, caramelization of those natural sugars in there, and then slice it. And it's just beautiful. So,
Mm.
I mean, to answer your question, no, I think medium rare, probably not unsafe. But I think texturally you would run into not issues, but I just don't think it would be as great. I think that,
Mhm.
that white meat really prefers to be cooked a little bit more rather
Yeah.
than the red meat of a duck or a goose breast.
That makes sense.
Hmm.
And what prompted that question is I went to a restaurant up in Northwest Arkansas this past year, and I had gotten an ostrich open faced tartine that they made up there. It
Mhm.
was phenomenal.
Yeah.
But with it being a more of a red meat, they cooked it like fitting with medium rare, and it
Mhm.
was really good. But I was wondering if that would be a decent recipe to do with a wild turkey. But I know that big difference between red meat, white meat. So
Yeah. I would just take it a little bit farther. I mean, the key, really, the take home here is just don't overcook it, you know? And the sous vide method really enables you to not do that because it's a very easy thing to overcook. Another trick that I do with the breast when grilling, and this is another thing that I really, really enjoy doing is grilling turkey breast, like in thin slices. But the thing is you can overcook that in a heartbeat. So what I've taken to doing is I cut it thin, I throw it in some sort of marinade, and then I will get a relatively hot fire going, and I will grill it only on one side. And
Hmm.
so you can sit there and you can visually watch the pink of the turkey breast turn white as it cooks. And then when you hit that 90% mark, and you get a visual check on that, like I'm 90% done on that side. I'll take it and I'll flip it over, count to 8, and then pull it. Done.
Mm.
And that's another way of like manually. I mean, this is it's kind of like the more antiquated way of just like nailing that temperature, but it's just visually. You watch it become cooked. And as soon as it's just a little under, and then you're like, boom, done. Then it comes out perfect every time that way too. And so I think that it's very important in conveying ways for people to be successful in game cooking. You can't just
Mhm.
be like, oh, look at me, I wrote awesome recipes. It's like, I've got to think about this from your perspective. Like, I've got to think about this in a way that you're going to understand the technique and that it's going to work for you and it's going to be amazing, and like, oh, and then want to start to do that. And so, like, developing little tricks like that is so important for the enjoyment because it's something that you'll see over and over is that game meat can be difficult to cook because
Mhm.
it's inconsistent, it's lean, and it's not, it's just not always the same. We don't
Yeah.
get that consistency that we get from grocery store farm raised meats, which is, is very detrimental to our growth as cooks. It's like very hard because it's formulated to come out well on your side. And if you can learn these tricks like that to make it come out, that it just gives people more confidence and more desire to continue to cook game and to say like, oh, this came out. And it didn't require all this crazy stuff. It's just all these techniques and stuff. It didn't take 9 hours. It was just like fairly straightforward. It's success, and that's what you want in the end. It's just like to convey that success. And so
Yeah.
little tricks like that and how to make the breast come out great every time, is something that I'm really into exploring.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm gonna have to go
That's
turkey
awesome.
hunting and try this, man. I've only been one and it got skunked, but kind of speaking to growth as a cook. So in my younger years, when I first kind of went on my own and started I come from, I guess, a very traditional Hispanic household. So my mom did, all the cooking pretty much and all that stuff. And so when I went on my own, I didn't know how to cook and I hated cooking. It just, for me, it was a means to an end, right? But it was probably not until maybe the last 5 years or so that I actually started to enjoy cooking. And I think that started happening when I started cooking wild game, because for me, I felt like, this animal gave its life for me and, the people whom I choose to share it with. And I think the last kind of respectful thing you can do is to treat this animal with respect in the kitchen, And so I think that's what kind of made me enjoy the process of cooking more. And I feel like, at least from the guests that we've had on and a lot of the friends and the people that I know, it seems like outdoorsmen, hunters, fishermen, all that, they seem to really enjoy cooking as well. And so I know you have a background and experience cooking, for a long time, but do you think that your passion for hunting and all that and conservation and your passion for cooking, do you think maybe that it could be either or, but do you think maybe that hunting component helped your growth as a chef, or maybe you being having the butcher background and having the experience in the kitchen kind of was more like a natural evolution towards hunting? How did those where did I'd be curious to see if at any point those lines kind of cross for you, where it really helped you elevate your game or your experience or anything like that.
Without a doubt. I think that what you're speaking to, I think of as connectivity. And it could also happen with a backyard chicken coop or growing your own tomatoes, or for that matter, going to the farmer's market and knowing the first name of the person that sold you the eggs or the tomatoes, then you're much less apt to be casual about those, because then you have, a varying spectrum of connectivity with that thing. And hunting offers you possibly the most connectivity, because even more than fish, because we can relate more to animals than we can to fish. And so at the end of the day, you're looking at how do you get the most connected to anything you can eat? And I think the answer would be through hunting. And it's a great feeling. It's just we predominantly eat in my house stuff that, well, I'm not even going to say that I hunted. I want to say that my daughter hunted, which is also, I mean, that's next level. That's, I thought it was cool when it was me. It's way better when it's her. And it all has to do with that connectivity. And then passing that along to her, so that she is now highly capable of providing these things for us to eat. And then when it's her turkey that I'm cooking, I'm even more possessive and just I'm gonna not, I don't know if possessive is the right, but you know what I mean? More just
Careful.
driven,
Mm-hmm.
careful. That's perfect. That's the best word. I'm just, I got to make this good because, it's so important to her. It's so important to me. And, it just kind of, what a great discovery it is to find that things that you have to do or that you're able to do are so much more fun if you let them be more fun,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Like you create that. You can actually do that. And so, I'm notorious. Like people will shoot a deer and I'll be like, I'll skin that for you. They're like, really? And I'm like, I love it. I'll skin and gut deer all day long. Pigs, you're on your own. But deer, love it. You know, uh, I mean, no, I'll skin and gut a pig for you, no problem. But I particularly enjoy it, and it's just like
Mhm.
to embrace that and to it's just a mindset, and so
Yeah.
it is. I have a garden now too. I'm obsessed with picking dewberries. That I was really distressed about the terribly poor dewberry season that I had. I picked a quart and a half, nothing. But
Wow.
I mean, it's fine. I'm okay. Walk over. That's the world. But the point being is that you can find that in all kinds of stuff. It's hard for me to just like walk around even in my neighborhood without being like, "Ooh, those plums are going to be ready in about 3 weeks," and anything that falls in the street, fair game. Um, and I love it. And you can do it all the time. And once you determine that you love something like cooking or hunting or fishing or foraging, or preserving and all those things, you can get a very robust life's worth of joy out of
Yeah. So how does that connectivity to the food and how you harvest and where you get it from, how does that inspire what you do at Dai Due?
Well, that's at a different level. First off, that's going to be driven by a different set of technical protocols. It's like we can't go out and hunt pigs and serve them in the restaurant. We're not going to pick enough dewberries to serve in the restaurant. Although some years we can. We'll do a little bit. There's not, and so that's going to be a different type of connectivity. And I won't say it's not a personal style, but it's not something like, catching a redfish and then cooking that at home and serving that to your family. This is
No.
on a larger scale. This is on a community scale. You're serving the community, but you're also sourcing from the community. So you
Mhm.
kind of take everything up one notch at that point. And it's just like, the connectivity is still there. You still know the first name. And I always use that as an example. Very important. Um, of the person that's selling you beef, the person that brings you your feral hogs, the person that brings you your domestic pigs, person that brings the tomatoes and the sweet potatoes and so forth, and the cheese and all that. And so that's a different kind of connectivity. But I I enjoy that just as much as knowing, where those things came from and that these likewise inspired people are are out there dedicating and they're just as into this as I am and as turkeys.
Mhm.
Mariana thinks about beef all the time when I'm just like, man, I wonder if I had just hand you up one last time. Like I would have got that bird. Uh, she's, that's the thing. And now we have this like radiating group of people that are doing it. And then consequently, that provides for hundreds, if not thousands of people to come into the restaurant and enjoy the fruits of their labor. And so, I think it's all kind of the same. It's like, how do I interact personally? How do, me and my daughter interact personally with our world and the resources within it? And then how do we conduct business, in an equitable and fair way and gather those resources and then translate that into a fair and transparent company that then provides this service and this product to our people in our community. And I
Yeah,
think that's another really fun thing to consider.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So
I
you're
think,
obviously very passionate about it. Go ahead, Jose.
oh no, I was just kind of speaking to what you were saying about your restaurant. I mean, The first time I went, I remember going to the bistro section and seeing the tags for the slabs of meat, and on the tag it said that it had the name of the ranch that it came from. I was like, dude, this is cool. Like you don't see that very often. And then I started kind of looking at some other things, and I mean, even the salt comes from Texas. Like I just thought it was just such a cool thing that you guys are not only is like a community, like the connectedness of it, but just like the support of the community and how it's just all coming together, and you can like kind of taste it in the food. It was just so, I mean, it was so awesome. Dai Due is fantastic for
Yep.
anybody in the area to go check it out.
Well, thank you. I think we can forget about these things in life that are so special, and the fact that you can cook a piece of beef over a piece of burning post oak and season it just with salt from the Laguna Madre. And again, we're talking about connectivity here. There's
Mhm.
you don't have a lack of knowledge about any single step of that process. And conceivably, you could do all those things. You could achieve all those things. You could, if you had to, kill and butcher a beef, you
Mhm.
know, dehydrate some hypersaline salt water from down near Port Isabel, and then gather up some post oak and light it. Like it's that to me it was more exciting than a bunch of crazy ingredients from all over the world being combined
Mhm.
in some
Yeah.
kind of bonkers way. It's just like, I mean, that's fun sometimes, but I love that, and
Yeah.
being able to tie all that together. Pretty fun. I keep saying that fun, but it is, and it's transparent. The way the
Yeah.
restaurant's designed, whole front area is where 100% of the prep takes place there. There's nothing in the back. We don't have another like little half kitchen or anything. We have the walk-in, the office, and the dish pit are in the back where you can't see. If you wanted to see, just ask somebody, we'll show you. But all of the prep in that restaurant takes place around that table, and it's in full view of everyone, and it's just like that is the transparency that we want. It's just like we want you to see everything that's happening. There's somebody making bread, there's somebody cutting up a pig, there's somebody pickling, and it's kind of messy and disorganized sometimes 'cause just too much stuff packed in that area. And it's just kind of like, that's life, it's just like doing our best, but it's just like I wanted purposefully, and it's almost like a little like recessed stage in a way where you can sit there and look at it. And then you go up and there's the hotline, there's a burning hearth, there's wood burning there and things are getting cooked. So like conceivably, you could be told an entire story without any words if you walked into that restaurant. If you walk in the front door, you would walk in and you would see several rib rolls from either Mariana Peeler or Lancito Carne. And all those rib rolls would be right there. Conceivably, somebody could be cutting one of those right behind there. And then you would walk a little further up and you would see that steak being cooked. Story's over. It's done. It's like, how do you do it? This is it. You don't have to ask anybody. It's like, I get it. I understand. There's, trays of tomatoes ripening, peaches, whatever we've got, it's because we don't do that for show. We do that because we don't have anywhere else to put them. It's just like, we just think we don't, those are things we never refrigerate, tomatoes and
Mhm.
peaches, they always stay out and you have to monitor them constantly. And it's just a really honest way of just telling this entire story. And of course, if you want to learn more about it, we could tell you. It can tell you more about the growing practices and where this came from, or how it was a hard year, or how that hailstorm really sucked the other night, or and we follow that up with the Texas wine list and things like that. These details that I think are integral for the entire story, and that this is what this place is. This is a rough place. It's got droughts and floods, weird weather, a lot of limestone in this direction, a lot of mesquite in that direction, a lot of really nice soil over there. Is the Gulf of Mexico. It's a cool story, that we got going on here. We got cultural stories. We've got Mexico, we got Germany, Czechoslovakia, and Vietnam, all, coming into the story here. It's just absolutely fascinating. And it doesn't happen. It couldn't happen anywhere else in the world. And the best time that story is told is when we don't really have to tell it, like when somebody can come in and kind of like just see it. They just figure it out. Like, oh, I get it. Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, it's
Damn, dude.
obvious
You
that
make me
you're
proud to be
passionate
Texan.
about the story.
Should be. It's a great place. It's so cool.
Yeah.
This place is so amazing. Yeah, it is. It
And-
just is. I mean, it's got, yeah. I mean, it's not to say that its history isn't fraught and violent and weird. There's injustice here and there, but it's like, I mean, there's no other place like it. And it's cool. It's really cool. Should be proud. We should just continually strive to make it a better place.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Amen to that.
And you said something earlier that kind of struck a chord with me. It was how everything's connected and how, the post oak and the cattle and the salt. And I've seen quite a few recipes of harvesting wild game, cooking wild game, that you use stocks or fats or oils from the animal you harvest to cook it in, and it just complements it so well. And I think what you're doing there at Dai Due kind of enhances that, because not only are you using what comes with the animal to cook it, but you're also using what that animal may have eaten while it was alive, areas that it grew up in. And like you said, there's nothing wrong with bringing in spices and stuff from other countries and using different things to make it crazy. But if you're using all stuff that's pretty much local, you think about that cow could have been eating, young palatable post oak sprouts, and, the grass that was there, and the grass growing in the salinity of the soil, which comes from the salt in the Gulf. Like, just putting it all together probably makes a huge difference in the taste of it as well. And they probably complement each other so well, even if it's just like small, minute differences in the taste or the flavor profile. It probably just complements each other really well.
Yeah, it might be indelible. It might be or like a subliminal experience that people have. You might not be able to place it, but that's what we hope, is that not necessarily that the experience there is different, but that it's unique to this place. It just can't be replicated. Like, we couldn't take this restaurant and put it in Northern California. This wouldn't be the same. It's like, or if you did, the ingredient list would obviously be so different. It'd be, heavier on seafood and very heavy on that. Things like that. We really feel like there's a lot of factors that drive what the food is there. It's a lot of it is cultural. A lot of it is based on what the land gives, and so it's very meat heavy. It's not meat heavy because we wanted it to be. It's meat heavy because it is. It's like the hill country in South Texas, not necessarily great agricultural regions, minus the Rio Grande Valley and some other places like that. But really, what do we do best here is meat. And I always use this example. It's like, the Comanches weren't known for making salads, and so it's what thrives here. And so it kind of, that steers it too. It's just like what's available. The menu, I'm not going to say writes itself, but in a way it kind of does. And that it's great also to hear people that absolutely recognize what we're doing there, because sometimes you can like lose sight of that in this day and age where, sometimes people come in and they don't understand, they're just like, why I want this thing. And it's like, well, we don't have that, or I had this thing last time I was here, and like, well, yeah, we don't have that, why not? Well, there's a lot of reasons, it's like, there's a freeze, there was a hailstorm, there's a flood, the farmer retired, or he just didn't show up. I don't know. There's a million reasons our control that running a restaurant like that makes everything. It's hard. It's very hard, because, we don't have lemons, we haven't had a lemon since, I don't know, October.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't
That's a
realize
hard
this stuff fluctuated.
conversation.
Like, what causes the fluctuations? I never even thought about that.
Hard to get. The freezes have been highly destructive for citrus. I mean, it just tells such a cool story though about, and I'll quote Mick Jagger one more time. Can't always get what you want, you get what you need. And we do have limes. Some citrus in your tea, South Texas is still cranking out limes, but the lemons took it pretty hard, and they're just hard to get. Some years we can get them. Oranges are fine in season. We get grapefruits all the way through May, but lemons they're tricky. And whenever I go down to the valley, my fiance is from Kingsville, and so whenever we go down there and visit family, and load the truck up with as many valley lemons. And I'm like, yeah, everybody, and I'll call up there. I'll be like, got lemons on the way. And everyone's the pastry chef, especially, is like, it's the poor lady. I'm like, no chocolate, no. What are you talking? I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't make the rules, except that I totally did.
See, I do the
That's
same
awesome.
thing, just kind of on a different scale. Every time I head back down to Texas, I have to make my stops at HEB and get certain seasonings I can't get in Arkansas. If I'm in South Texas, it's Valley lemons and orange watermelons or yellow watermelons. Like there's always things that I get depending on where I'm going. I do the exact same thing, just on a smaller scale.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So if you're okay with it, I'd like to kind of shift gears and kind of get some experiences that you've been through and some shows that you've been on, and just kind of talk about how those experiences how you may have been able to influence a show or an episode, or how maybe they've been able to influence you. So I don't know too much about all of your history and how you started getting involved with Meat Eater or anything like that. But the first time that I saw you on anything was actually on Das Boat with Alan. How did that come about?
I don't quite remember, to tell you the truth. I mean, the whole media collection came through my dear friend Ben O'Brien. So Ben was from Austin. He worked at Yeti. I did Ben's podcast a couple times at Yeti, and we got to be good friends. And then he went to work for a Meat Eater and called me up one day and said, "Hey, their live podcast is coming through Dallas, and they want you to be on the live podcast." And so I went up to Dallas and did the podcast with them. And like I said, it went pretty well. It was fun. I had a good time. I think everybody had a good time. I learned that the best thing you can do with Steve is push back. Don't just take it, like give him a little shit. And kind of worked out. And we were, got invited back to do a couple episodes of the main show, and then also the Das Boot, not Das Boot. Das Boot is the submarine movie. But and it was really fun, and I've always loved Alvin, and he's such a wonderful guy and such an incredible guy. He's so good. And he knows that river, and I've always appreciated that he's fishing this river right outside of town. He knows it so well. It was a fun episode. I like the concept too. And I was like, what am I going to put on this boat? And I was like, well, I'll put a floating thing with a big old gas can. I was like, let's put a grill. Put a grill on it. Let's start a fire.
It's like the first boat I've ever seen with a grill actually attached to it.
Yeah, just kind of bouncing along there. Yeah, that's how.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've never thought about having a grill on a boat or anything like that. So watching that episode, it was pretty interesting to me. And then I started seeing you on a few other things as I started watching more Meat Eater and stuff like that. I just thought it was very interesting. I was like, I wonder how that even came about. So why I asked that question. So obviously you know a lot about cooking hogs, cooking turkeys and stuff like that. You've spoken a little bit about talking fish earlier. Do you care to talk a little bit more about how you go about sourcing your fish, or how you go about learning new recipes and trying new things in terms of cooking fish?
Yeah, I love fish. When I was a kid, I fished since I mean, probably 4 years old. And then as soon as I was able to drive, I was driving and fishing. I was just at the lake all the time. I loved it. And then when I first moved to Austin, I was just there's paradise out here. All the hill country rivers and all the lakes and stuff around here. It's just so much new stuff to learn. And then realized that I'm 3 hours from the coast also. And so I fish quite a bit, actually, and always have. And I really enjoy cooking and eating fish and also other seafood. So, I mean, I'm pretty obsessed with blue crabs. I love crabbing a lot. And, when we're down in the coast too, we're also like buying shrimp and just getting into it. I love seafood quite a bit. So, but I cook fish, pretty regularly. We fish the spring run for white bass and crappie. Some years more than others. This year, very little. The water levels were low, and then turkey season kicked off. And so once that happened, it was like, oh, I'm kind of done. And so didn't put a ton in the freezer, but it's old, you know, and, just some residual saltwater fish. But I'm always out there kind of experimenting with like different ways to cook redfish on the half shell, which I think is the best way to cook a redfish fillet.
Agreed.
And I guess just a couple nights ago, I made beer battered crappie. I made fish and chips with some crappie fillets, and it was so good.
That's
Fried
awesome.
fish is, again, fried turkey, fried fish. I don't know, objectively, highest and best use, in my opinion.
I agree with that.
And,
I do like
and
a
I
good
do have,
blackened fish, but only if it's like a rough fish that doesn't have much flavor. I'll blacken it
Yeah.
just because I love blackened seasoning. But
Yeah.
if it's a good flavored fish,
yeah. And kind of feeding off the whole like seafood question. We could feel free to plead the fifth, but I'm just curious. I know you have I think it's 3 books: the Hog Book, Turkey Book, and then a Field, I believe is the other one. Do you have any plans for a seafood related book, maybe sometime down the future?
I can give you an answer on that, and then I'll give you another more cryptic answer. The answer is seafood book, no.
Okay.
But is there a bunch of seafood related content forthcoming within the next 2 weeks? Yes.
Cool.
And after that, I'm going to plead the fifth.
Awesome.
There's something. There's a big announcement coming up soon.
Okay.
And I'll just say it's going to be. There's about to be a lot of available content.
Heck
coming.
yeah.
I won't say what the format is, but there's something coming. So it'll be fun.
That's
I
awesome.
promise that.
Sweet.
So that kind of like, I was going to ask that question myself as well, as like, what do you have coming? What's up next? Is there anything else, any other big projects you're working on other than that one you just mentioned?
No, right now we've kind of doubled down on classes at the restaurant, so I had one just last night. We do this 3-hour feral hog butchery class. And I feel like we could just do that till the end of time. There's so many people that want to take that class. It's easy. It's a Monday night class, 3.5 hours. They can roll in, we'll cut up a couple pigs, we'll make sausage, and we'll go through the whole thing. And so I'm going to keep doing that. I really enjoy that because it's this face-to-face. It's very fun for me. I love getting a group. It's usually about a dozen people. The restaurant's closed, and so we just got the whole space to ourselves, and we're just talking and cutting and just trying to really convey as much as possible. So I want to stay kind of on those lines. I've got some really exciting new opportunities with some like partner brands. I'm an ambassador with Poncho now, and so we're doing some fun stuff. Mill Scale out of Lockhart, they make these exquisite smokers, and I'm really there to talk about their direct heat grills. That's kind of my lane. As I really like cooking really hot right over the heat source. And so the things that they make are just incredibly fun to cook with. And I'm also the Wild Foods editor for Modern Huntsman magazine. And
Sweet.
that's been incredible too. And that's really cool for me because just twice a year I get to interview somebody. And so I get to pick these just incredible people and have this long rambling conversations with them. And then they, put it in the magazine as an interview. And so
That's
that really
awesome.
enables me to kind of like find these people that I really, really admire and go in there and have these just conversations with them. So that's pretty fun. Also doing some recipes and events and things like that. But really beautiful magazine. very, very cool, like an international hunting magazine, and the photography is just stunning. And if you've never seen it, it's a beautiful, beautiful magazine.
That's amazing. So where can people find your books and anything else, any other works that you work on?
Yeah. The books, the Hog Book and the Turkey Book, are available from thewildbooks.com. You can pick them both up at Dai Due if you're in Austin. A couple local bookstores have them as well. First Light up in Hyde Park has them. Meat Eater carries them on their store as well, which I really appreciate. I think that's very kind of them to do that. The restaurants Dai Due, come in. It's great time of year. Summer's fun. There's like all kinds of vegetables and cool stuff on the menu right now. And follow me on Instagram, because the teased announcement from earlier will likely come. Actually, it has to come from Instagram. I don't have any other, not even on Facebook or anything. So unless I just stand outside and start yelling, you're gonna have to find out from Instagram. And I'm Sakalait on there, SAC.A.LAIT. And we'll have some cool content news coming out here shortly.
Awesome. Isn't Sakalait like French for coffee or something like that?
It is. I mean, it's French for bag of milk, but it means crappie. Yeah.
I see.
So I
That's
think
crazy.
that confuses the hell out of people that don't know what a crappie is. Because they're like, why are you a bag of milk, sir? Unless you.
Didn't think about that.
Oh yeah,
That's
I don't
awesome.
know. Yeah, when naming things, I think I always make interesting decisions. I make a restaurant that nobody can pronounce the name to. My mother can't do it. Still to this day, she can't say the name of the restaurant. Or like the cooking school branch of it is called the New School of Traditional Cookery, and people are like, whoa, slow down there, buddy. Like, what are all these words? And then, the Instagram handle is just some pretty esoteric, weird Cajun French word for a crappie. I don't know what I'll ever learn. Luckily, I somebody guided me on the book title. So they're like, hey, why don't you get it more simple? And then I took that idea and went too far with it. They're like, hey, what's this book about? Hog Book? Yeah. I'll wait till I follow it up with the one about turkeys. What are you going to call that one? It's like pretty creative. So I don't know. I need to find a happy medium between like the impossible name and then the overtly simple name. So
Hey, I
I'll
like
work
the overtly simple because I'm not a smart man. It's like, hey, I
It
know what
works.
that book's about. Well, we
It
appreciate
works.
your time, man. We had a great time having you on here, and we learned a
Yeah,
lot from you.
man.
So, for those of y'all that are watching to the end, we really appreciate it. And go check out Dai Due if you're in the Austin area, and go order the Hog Book and the Turkey Book. We'll catch y'all next time.
This has been Wildlife Outdoors. Thanks for listening. Follow us on Facebook at Wildlife Outdoors and on Instagram at wild.life.outdoors. Let's go live life on the wild side.